Welcome back to the channel. In the series where I've been talking to some of my friends slash colleagues slash trusted advisors, Dan DeVerna keeps on kind of popping up, and we have a good time because he's got a lot of good stuff to say. Plus, we have a lot of fun kind of poking at each other. So we're going to do a small series of 5 to 7 minute videos where we're going to do almost a blend between these normal kind of conversations and the CEO confessionals. Both of us are running our companies, and I want it to be kind of one of those MTV type mashups where we have, you know, an honest conversation, but we actually talk about some of the challenges or struggles that CEOs have. I think most people look from the outside and go, you guys have all your shit sorted, but there's, you know, lots of stuff that we still work on, disciplines we have to put in place. Sometimes we have to beat ourselves to kind of, you know, get in the game and stay in the game. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Today, what I thought would be interesting as the topic would be to talk about, can you have the same level of friends or volume of friends as you become more successful? Before we get into that, my friend Dan DeVerna.
Good to be with you.
That's a really nice poster behind you there. Toledo, Ohio.
Toledo, Ohio.
Best known for Cooper tires.
It's one of the things we're known for. Tony Pacos. That's
Tony
another
Pacos,
one.
for those that don't know, if you ever watched MASH, Radar or Klinger? Klinger, who was the cross-dressing Army guy before that was a thing, was a Toledo resident. What was his real name? Jamie Farr.
That's right.
Yeah,
we have
Jamie
a golf
Farr.
tournament named after him. Yeah. He's a big deal around here.
Wow. We should, let's fact check that. So,
yeah.
Dan and I have been, well, we've done business together for
10 years.
10 years. We've been friends for 4.
4 of them.
And not all in sequence, kind of, you know.
Right.
We have these breakups. Yeah, so we've been friends for the whole time. And I think what was nice is we kind of both have the same drive. I think at times where I've kind of mailed in a little bit, which means, you know, I'm not probably doing my best. He will give me shit and vice versa. If I see him dragging, I'll bring it up. We seem to have created this this friendship based on expecting the best from each other and calling each other out when we're probably not doing as good as the other knows that they could be. And so, Dan, my question to you and kind of the conversation topic of this quick video is, how has your friendship circle shifted as you have established and developed yourself in business?
So it's shifted considerably. I think probably if you were going to narrow it down to the 2 or 3 hardest things once you become successful, the friendship thing is definitely in that top 3. There's people that, you know, I don't want to say left behind in a mean way, because that's not the way I feel about some of my friends I've had in the past. It's definitely something that some of them have felt, so they have chosen to separate themselves from me. It's kind of like if you have friends that, you know, if you had I used to be a fat guy, so I would hang out with other kind of fatter people. And when I decided I was going to make an effort not to be fat anymore, they were pretty critical. And the reason I think that they're critical is because, you know, you're doing something about it, and that then reflects on them potentially poorly. I never cared. I don't care what people look like. I don't care what they do for a living. One of the things that is really hard is having friends that you've had through all the phases of your life. At Cooper Tire, I had literally 100 friends that I worked with. It was a great place and great people. And now you say, oh yeah, who are your friends? You know, now I think, geez, with the coronavirus deal and the lockdown, 2/3 of my friends I don't even get a chance to go see because they're from a different country. So I've got this small group that became even smaller of friends over the last, over the last few months.
So just as a point of clarification, are we saying that you're not chubby anymore?
No, I'm fatter than I look fatter than I really am.
And I actually heard an expert say that. And so I was witness to a person whose job it is to determine how chubby people are at DEXA in Las Vegas. Yeah, it's more of an optical illusion.
Right.
What I like to call the Danny DeVito effect.
It's shocking that someone that fat can run a marathon. Like, you have to be skinnier than that, right?
To be fair, we were pulling you on a wagon, and so you weren't actually running. I mean, you were in the marathon, but we were dragging you in that wagon. So what do we call it, running?
Well, you guys only took me to the bathroom stops, so I ran the rest of the way.
Well, bathroom stops, it was a bit. So, I found the same thing is I went to a reunion last fall with a bunch of people that I used to work with. And I found that as I grew in business, I wanted to hang out with my friends, but we normally couldn't do things that I wanted to do because I was the only one that might be able to afford it. And secondly, I found a lot of them accrediting my success to luck. You're really lucky you got out of Kamloops, and you're really lucky you got that job, and you're really lucky you went out on your own. And I think in their mind, there is a magic where I was the lottery winner, right? I happened to be the one of all of us that were playing the game that won. But in hindsight, you realize that a majority of them weren't even playing, nor do they choose to play. And my buddy Brian, Big B, who is also kind of a guy like me, we both bounced together. And he went from studying for his real estate exam in the DJ booth when we were bouncers to becoming kind of an assistant to a realtor, to becoming a full realtor, to owning real estate brokerages. And the same type of thing is when my book hit the bestsellers list, I have everyone in my circle doing the rah-rah and him going, I don't give a shit. I remember you back when we were in university. And so write a book or not write a book, I give zero. That's always been really good to keep each other grounded of not buying into the PR. Would you say that back in the day when you had like those 100 friends at Cooper Tire, like in your group now, your circle, do you find, as I do, that you have two types of friends, social friends and gladiators, the people that are also doing interesting stuff?
Absolutely. So I think I have two groups of people that I hang out with, and I like them all, but there's only so many people you can have some of those conversations with. Almost any conversation with anybody, but there's a few conversations that is not relatable to really most of the people that I hang out with. And that isn't meant to be negative to them, because I really appreciate their friendship, but it's tough for some of them to relate to the things I'm talking about. And the other thing that you'll see, I was just in a golf outing last couple weekends ago, and it was a great outing. It was a lot of fun. But what you saw is some of the people that you've known for 20 years that go to the golf outing and do the same thing, the exact same thing they did 20 years ago. So it's, ripping shots, seeing how quick they could get really drunk and have a great time golfing, and which is great. Again, do what you want to do. But for me, like that, I have to pay a consequence for that. Like that's not something I do. It's not something most of my close friends do. And we don't necessarily want to have the next day or the way the rest of that day looks and the complications and all that stuff and potential regrets that you have with that. And so I think it's changed in a whole bunch of ways with the friends and who you choose to be around. And then with the virus thing, it really highlights that even bigger, because now you only so many people that you can even have the option of hanging around. You're really, I haven't been on a plane since February. And for me, I think that's the longest time in at least 15 years that I've ever gone without being on a plane. I'm sure you're in the same situation.
Well, I am, and it's funny because I got the letters from the different airline loyalty programs saying, "Hey, we're extending your admiral status or whatever for another year." Da, da, da. My dad used to say that the last mile is the loneliest. When you're out there making things happen, that last mile is where most of the crowd kind of peels off, and I found that. Do you think that there is an inherent requirement to accept loneliness as part of success, knowing that you going that extra mile, that extra distance, that doing the extra to take your life to the next level, it's probably going to be pretty quiet?
I think so. I think there's going to be a little bit more loneliness. And then especially if you can't find some of those people to kind of run with and that can hold you accountable. I'm very thankful for the group that you kind of put together and those relationships, because I always have them. But if I was left to create that on my own here in Toledo, it's a pretty small group. Like I have a very small group of people that I could actually talk about real things and real numbers and have them be able to contribute to a conversation and not just be a sounding board. So I think I do think that's tough. And I also think it's making the right decisions is hard. Like just a couple nights ago, I had a bunch of people at my house and I'm like, "Hey, good night." They're like, "You're going to bed?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like it's 10:15. I'm going to bed. They're like, "Geez." I'm like, "Well, I'm just guessing. Nobody else here is waking up at 4:53 in the morning tomorrow to do this, this, and that. Well, and then they just kind of give me a little ribbing, if you will, for it. But I'm also comfortable leaving the group out there to do what they do and me to go to bed. I think that's part of being a little bit lonely, but part of being okay with being lonely. Like, it's all right. It's all right.
I'm always mindful of that fact that you can't control how people act, but you can control interaction. And I think that's part of that last mile mindset of, a lot of people aren't going to get up at 4:53, or they're not going to necessarily practice particular things that might get them ahead because it might not be as important to them. So you don't have to make them wrong to be right. You just, you paint your own picture and you move along. Anyway, Dan, listen, I know your time is tough. I'm going to grab you back in a couple of weeks because I've got some other things I want to get your kind of feedback on and have this little conversation. But thanks for joining us. And as always, I'm going to put Dan's information in the bottom just so if you have any questions about what we talked about, or if you need a great investment advisor, he works with clients right across the country. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.